the second part. And in fact, the first part has been enriching. The second part is interesting. Why? Because it's time for you to throw your questions and for Sir Ron Thomas to answer those personally. So for those of you, our Zoom participants, please type in your questions at the Q&A box. You can see that. For our Zoom live questions, click the raise button. We will be glad to hear from you. We will be glad to see you virtually face-to-face, and you can ask your question live. For Facebook Live viewers, we are now monitoring your questions, and Madam Irish Malonda Samson, our dear president, is sending us all your Facebook Live questions. And for our YouTube viewers, LinkedIn viewers, thank you so much for your support. Now, Sir Ron, before we start with the Q&A, can I just greet our local participants?
Sure.
Okay, so, sir, right now, we are joined from, well, let's do this from A to, well, this morning was A to C now. We start with Angeles City, Baguio City, Cagayan de Oro City, Cebu City, Davao City, Dumaguete City, and General Santos City. Yan. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. And at the same time, we'd like to greet John Christopher Tamayo a very, very happy birthday. Happy birthday, John Christopher Tamayo. Now, so the first question is from our Madam President, Irish Malonda Samson. Sir Ron Thomas, can you give the details where we can reach you, if it's okay?
Sure. My email address is ron.thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And my company's email account is Trategy Focused ED Group.com.
Yes, I think they got it.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, sir. Sir Ron Thomas, during the 2-minute break, we talked about something that's so personal, and I'm not sure if you're willing to share it with the viewers now on how I think that story of yours is an example, a perfect example of going through a crisis in a flexible, agile, and strong way.
Yeah, that was extremely, I can't even tell you how disheartening that was. And I think the worst part about it was I was not able to get there because Dubai's airport was closed. And the only option I had was I could have flown to another country, and the flight was going to take 24 hours, and the cost of the flight was $13,000 US. And then as I talked to the family, there was nothing I was going to be able to do there anyway. I mean, so it was kind of the first time something has happened that close, and there's nothing you can really do. And so when we talk about these challenges we're going through, there's no script for it.
There's none.
There's none. So it's kind of like it happened, and that was it. So we had an online service after post-service, memorial service that was online. Everybody logged into Zoom, but that was kind of disheartening because it was at midnight here. And, so the rest of the night, you didn't sleep because so many things was going through your mind. So it was just kind of one of those things. But you know what? It is what it is. And I'm not the only one. When I look at 10,000 people in the U.S. have died, could be 10,000 plus. Well, that's 10,000 separate stories.
That's true.
And we all have a story. So mine's no different than the others. So, my heart goes out to everybody who's.
Our deepest condolences to you, Sir Ron Thomas, and to your family. Losing a sister is no joke. Losing a loved one to COVID-19 is no joke. But we thank you for staying strong. We thank you for your professionalism. We thank you for moving forward and helping Filipinos to deal with crisis with strength that you have. So, Sir Ron, let's proceed to the first question we have on the Q&A box. What to do with a leader who seems to be in denial with what is happening now and thinks everything will go back to normal when we all return to work?
Okay. My first job was sales. for IBM out of college. And so we talked about influencing skills way back when. And sometimes when you have a leader that you're trying to get to, and the leader is rebuffing you, a piece of strategy you may want to use is that who does that leader have confidence in? Is that the person they have lunch with? Is that the person they play golf with on the weekend? Is that the person they kind of hang out with? And maybe I want to use that strategy and go around and penetrate it from that side. Because if the one-on-one is not going to work, the block is still there. Well, that block that they're presenting to, in your case, could be different from that person they're talking to, because maybe on that person they're talking to is basic. It could be they're having those offline conversations, which is totally different than what you're having. So when the block is there, how do I get around the block? Consistently moving forward, bumping heads is not going to do it. So I look for a surrounding approach, and I want to find someone there that's maybe they're talking to. But on the other side, if they're not there, can I make a stronger business case? Can I talk about the impact? Can I have a discussion?
Okay.
Give me the discussion on the new model. Okay, if it remains the same, what can we do? If it does not remain the same, what can we do? So I would kind of ask, could we go through kind of a small scenario? So let's say we go back to normal, we do that. We need to think about safety, number one. What are the redundancy implications? And I'm beginning to have a conversation, and I'm not trying to sell my view on the disruption. I'm just trying to say, okay, let's put some structure in place as to how we can, and I change the focus of it, and I can maybe get them, as they're thinking through something, to kind of open up a little bit. And you use that as an opportunity to kind of navigate through that. It's from people that are into sales, you know how to use these kind of techniques to do that. But all it is that one-on-one, face-to-face, if that's not working, surround it. And if the surrounding doesn't work, that person is so awful, doesn't have any friends. I just bring it back to a business case and say, okay, great. It's going to stay the way it is. So how can we prepare for staying where it is? If this happens, what's the safety procedure we're going to implement? That's a safe question that we're going to implement moving forward. Are we going to do full participation workforce, or what does the government say? Can I get your help to design something in that? And maybe in having these conversations over a period of time, you may get a small crack that you could maybe work something through.
Those are good strategies. I like it, Sir Juan Thomas. Look for one person this person trusts and or listens to, and let this person speak the truth to this person in denial.
Everybody has a BFF. Everybody has. Okay. You may not be the BFF, but everybody has one.
Have an eye to look for that BFF. Now we have a sharing from Sir Darwin, Mr. Darwin Rivers, and he said, with millions out of job and thousands of companies barely surviving, HR leaders should prepare themselves to take a more active role in engaging their employees and the available talent pool to ensure that your organizations thrive in these times of crisis. That's his opinion.
Yes.
And I agree to that.
That's an excellent opinion, because everyone is going through something. And this is where the empathetic side of this new leader comes about. Having those and have built the relationship. If you built the relationship, if you've grown the harvest, I can reap the harvest.
Yeah, I agree.
It's too late to grow the harvest now. And this is where a cultural thing comes back into play. If I didn't spend time on working, trying to create that kind of greenhouse, I can't harvest anything. Okay. And a lot of companies are going to find that out.
Thank you, Sir Ron Thomas, for that. So it's all about you nurturing your relationship with your people, and eventually it will pay off. Now, Sir Ron Thomas, you mentioned something about self-anointing or self-anointed gurus.
Yes.
So what's your take on that? If we encounter speakers who say that they are the guru of, or like what you mentioned a while back, so what will be the approach, or how will the people be reacting to this particular, or these particular self-anointed people?
Okay, self-anointed. So I'm doing a kind of Q&A with the self-anointed expert as
Or,
to tell me why you have that title.
or that could be one, or that could be the people listening to these self-anointed.
Well, yeah, because I give you an example of that. Someone was speaking at a conference in the US, and it was listed as a global human resources expert. And the question came up in the audience said, I just reviewed your LinkedIn profile. You've never worked outside of Ohio. So how
Oh,
is it that you're a global HR expert? So sometimes when you're vetting people, you may want to do that up front. Walk me through your background. Walk me through the 20 years you've worked and give me some highlights of each. What are your learnings coming from that? How can you take those learnings and share with my audience? And that way you can kind of do a filtering process. Because I applaud the person who asked that question, because after that, someone sent me a note and said, I met another global HR expert, Ron. Check out this profile. And it was the same thing. And lots of times in today's branding, somebody will do one speech and they'll say they're an international speaker. And it just goes on and on and on. But if I'm bringing someone else in, I've got to do my background to make sure it's qualified. Because you may have someone that asked that question. And if someone asked that question, everything you've just said now is taken with a question mark.
Thank you so much, Sir Ron. So it's all about credibility versus marketing.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Now, we have a question from Wendy Tuason. You mentioned that there will be leaders who will emerge out of a crisis like this. I agree. But how do you think we can sustain that from our leaders?
Okay, that quote, we will have leaders that will emerge from that. These could have already been leaders, but that may not have been perceived as leaders, but maybe they step up to the plate and they've come. I'm going to come back to human resources. Maybe it's the HR manager who is able to diagnose this, is able to come up with somewhat of a credible plan, even if it's just a framework. And if that person gets that opportunity to crack that and get inside of that space, your goal then is to stay there. And you stay there by really understanding the business, really understanding the process you're talking about, and letting them kind of see that, you know what, we need the Darwins in the room because this is his area and he has some pretty good ideas coming in. Oh, I need the Ivys in the room because these people have come through and brought something to the table, but the people I just used are already there. But I'm just saying, if you have that opportunity to crack that and you see yourself evolving into that, the key is to stay there and to be branded from that side. Remember, the branding comes from the other side. The branding does not come from you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sir Rod. Now we have someone who's sharing her thoughts as well. From Gloria Salvado, sharing, I have a lot of learning for one day. As I have said this morning, I am not an HR person, but at this point in time, I realized that you don't need to be in the HR to become an HR champion, especially in this time of crisis. So this is the opinion of Ma'am Gloria.
Okay, let me tag on to that. When I talked about advisory board, and if I heard someone make a statement like that, that's the person I want on my advisory board.
Wow.
Because that thought process shows me that I'm open to learn, I'm open to contribute, and there could be 100 people on this call, but I want to say, I'm not an expert here, but I know I've got learning to do. Humility, you just shared it. So I'm going to say, come on down.
So, Ma'am Gloria, come on down to Dubai.
Come on down.
Okay, sir, we have a live Zoom question. And let's call Cromwell Maestrado. Cromwell?
Yes, hello, sir. Good afternoon. And it's my pleasure to be part of this tremendous learning activity. Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, well, we talk about leadership, though. We know for sure that leadership is somewhat like complex in terms of the way how you define it. And the person who experience such type of leadership skills or strategy. But my question is, in times like this, well, we are currently in the most challenging, trying, and turbulent times. How could we reassure the people we're leading that our leadership is solid and will bring a great foundation to be the future-proof leader somehow in a certain organization? Because what I really have a problem is the consistency of the leadership skills, the styles and strategies. Some of them cannot sustain for that period of time. So how could we make this kind of leadership skills sustainable in the long run?
The leaders that get it should be the voice.
Yes.
We talked about this relationship piece. When you go back to harvest now, you want to harvest the people that have risen to the table before, the people that have built solid leadership capabilities. It doesn't have to always be the person on top. It could be someone on that team. Because we know, and specifically I know from dealing with leaders, probably 90% of my work is dealing with that. Some of them are so far removed from reality, and you can only have a coherent conversation inside of a conference room. So I can just imagine a relationship outside of the door. But you have team members that maybe get it, that maybe in conversations, I look at statements they made, like the previous statement that was made, that approaches it from a humility perspective. So it says a lot of leaders will be discovered from non-leaders to leaders. Well, a lot of leaders, have these skills already, they've already built relationships. These are the ones also that's going to rise to the top. And if organizations were smart, these were the people who would lead the apostolic communication or lead the hands-on kind of all hands on deck or set up a call for everyone. They're going to have to step up now. And if that leader up top, like the example we used before, that just didn't get it, you couldn't approach, well, there may be someone on that team that may be on our call or on our get-together, they would lead it. So that works both ways. Non-leader to leader, leader 1.0 to leader 2.0, because the 2.0 is a different skill from the 1.0. The old command control, I'm in charge, will not work going forward because you never built a relationship. So there's nothing in the harvest in the garden that you can go harvest because you never grew anything, and that will come out. All of that's going to come out moving forward. And there will be changes from a board perspective and realizing this is not the leader I need. So the leader that got you into this role as a CEO or managing director, whatever it is, I need a different skill set post-virus. And that skill set post-virus, now more than ever, is going to have to be a people-type leader to move it forward.
Right. The bottom line here is you have to remain flexible.
How to be flexible.
Yeah, exactly. And
agile.
That's true. Agile, nimble, and quick leader. Well, at this generation, you have to be transformational, though.
Yeah.
And of course, very quick in leadership. Well, considering all the generations,
Yeah.
You have millennials, Generation Z, Generation X, baby boomers, and all. So we have to incorporate them all together. Exactly.
That's a collaborative approach. If I go to the Gen Zs in my organizations and the millennials, I want them on this advisory piece. I want them on trying to explain to me what's going to work in the new policy. I want to understand the demographics of our workforce. What is the growing demographic? If that's the growing demographic, I need their voice as I'm planning something, because otherwise you're gonna be off target.
Right. Well, thanks a lot. That's very insightful and very enlightening, sir. Thank you so much.
I agree. So thank you, Sir Cromwell Maestrado, for the live, the Zoom question. And thank you, Sir Ron Thomas, for that answer. Now, we'll move on to the next question in our Q&A box. Well, as I mentioned a while back, Sir Ron Thomas, we're being flooded right now. And unfortunately, we only have 5 more minutes. Or fortunately for you, if you haven't had lunch yet. But then again, let's call is it Novicris Pineda? So what do you think would be the most essential departments to be strengthened on a company during and after this pandemic? Thank you. Maybe this is aside from HR department.
Okay. If it's besides HR, because I was going to say HR is in the driver's seat now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The next one from that, now that depends upon the org structure. That could be sales. That could be marketing.
Okay.
It depends upon the organization. It depends upon the industry you were in. It depends upon your place in that industry before this happens. Because if you were struggling before this happened, the writing may be on the wall going forward. So the technique around scenario planning is based on that. Scenario is that how are we going to go from zero revenue? All strategy is gone out of the window now. Zero revenue. How do we begin starting foundation and incrementally growing it again? So there's an article that came across yesterday from McKinsey. It says strategy and the virus, total disruption. That's on my reading list today because I want to understand it from that perspective. The last slide I showed you, I need you to really do that. I need you to go to each one of those sites and log in and register, build your profile out, because you're going to have to go into like the fastest mode of learning that you probably have ever witnessed. If you're serious about your career. If you're not serious about your career, don't waste the time.
Thank you, Sir Ron. Now, from Lourdes Abayan, how would you be able to delegate responsibilities that your HR staff will take it positively?
I will ask them. I will bring all of them into the Zoom, the room, or whatever methods we're using, and I'd have that conversation with them. We have to move away from one person being the decision maker, and we have to move to, so from methods in consulting design, one-to-one, as I'm talking to you, I could do one-to-one on each one of those members, which this is a method you could use. I could do one-to-one, and I could understand the constraints or challenges for each one. And then I could do one-to-many, bring all of them back into the room and said, we got 10 different ideas. Let's use a prioritization exercise to see what are the top 3 we can work from. And by the session's over in 50 minutes, we can walk out and we'll have our strategy in place. Now, what's the difference between that, or I'm looking out and said, I want you, based on my perception, as opposed to getting everyone in the room on the same page, or everything comes out in the wash, we have a discussion, and we have a group strategy moving forward. The group strategy moving forward is going to be extremely successful.
Thank you, Sir Rod.
The other one will not be.
Thank you, sir. So at least that's the next best thing to face-to-face, which is the Zoom, the Zoom room.
Zoom room.
The Zoom room. We have another live question, sir, from Ivy de Borja. Miss Ivy, are you?
Hi everybody. So my question is there an antidote to negativity coming from people who lost their jobs and their friends who are still with us?
No. So here's the thinking on that. When you go through an exercise to redundant or whatever you'd call it, whatever branding you call it, because it's got so many brands now and laying people off, you got to think about the people leaving that's going to be left behind, because the tentacles of the people that are leaving is back inside of your organization now. And that's never easy when you go through that kind of disruption. But having gone through that before, a short story was when Martha Stewart went through this problem, we had to lay off the entire TV division, 300 people, and all those 300 were connected to the other 700 to 1,000 people. So we talked to both groups about what was happening, what was impending, some decisions we were going to have to make, transparency. We kept everyone into the loop. And the people that were let go, we pulled out all stops in making sure that they were equipped to go to this next phase. We had resume writers come in. We have interview coaches come in. So we had some support for them. They knew from a business perspective, we lost the contract for the TV show. So I don't know what was the parameters of you losing those people, but everyone has to understand this is what we did, the choices we made or whatever it was. Lots of time that's kind of hard to explain, but I much prefer being as transparent as possible, letting everyone know. And even if people that are left behind, what are your thoughts? We just went through an exercise that has a lot of people kind of wondering about their careers and everything. Let's talk about that. What are you worrying about? What's on the agenda for you? And sometimes people have to just let it out. And if you let it out where leaders are listening, whether I have a solution or not, at least I was there to try and comfort as much as I can. Because you don't have the ability to go out and say, okay, the 200 people come back. You don't have the ability to do that. And the people that were caught up in that, they knew that our product that they were delivering was canceled. So we couldn't just pay them to sit around and do nothing, but we went through a thorough explanation. We gave them the business dynamics. But what we did on the other side was that someone wrote an article about it in New York, and they said we laid them off with heart or whatever. I forget now the term they use, but we did everything possible. And what happened on the other side, people that were still there, someone came up to me and said, I've been in a lot of companies that they laid people off, but I've never seen a company went through as many hoops as you guys did to help all these people out. That was just absolutely amazing, because we brought the coaches in, we brought them into a physical location that everyone could see. We contacted every other TV company and had their recruiters come in and spend a day. We branded National Geographic table, Food Channel table. All of our employees had to work through that. So even the employees who were coming in to be coached knew that they were getting special treatment. Even the ones that were left behind, a visual to see, wow, this is a great company. Look at what they're doing.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ivy de Borja. And thank you, Sir Ron Thomas. You know what? I believe that stories are the best way.
It's called storytelling.
To convey a message. Yeah. And you know what? That's a powerful message you have conveyed with us about you going the extra mile to ensure that you don't drop them like hot potatoes, but make sure that another set of hands will carry them, and so that their life will move on. Thank you so much, Sir Ron. Are we still okay?
We're okay.
With more questions?
This is my last call for the day.
Oh, good. Now, so from Josephine Fernandez, after the ECQ, how is the best way to assure back those who work from home all throughout? How will we deal with those who were part of the skeletal force? Any incentive out?
First of all, what's ECQ?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a jargon in the Philippines. This is our enhanced community quarantine, or the lockdown version in the US. So what incentive can we give aside from the monetary payouts to those who work tirelessly, skeletal force?
I'm gonna draw a blank on that. But if I were concerned about that, again, always use in change management, one of the structures of a model is audience impact. So if you think of that, what audience is going to be impacted, and you go to them and you ask them. It's kind of like if you're designing an employee engagement strategy, you're sitting in the room and you say, well, hey, we can offer free coffee, we can do this, and you put it out there, and employees walk by, who thought of this dumb idea? You didn't ask them. So if I had to face something like that, I cannot tell you enough, this collaborative approach and audience analysis. Think of this. What's the business challenge? What is the workforce implication? What is the audience that's going to be impacted? Step 3, audience impacted. That's where the solution is going to come from. We have to stop trying to be seen as the person who has to come up with all the answers. If I go out into a workforce of 1,000 and I maybe do 4 focus groups across, if I have the time or whatever it is, and ask them. I posed that question to them. What could we do that would enhance post-virus or EQ, whatever acronym you use?
ECQ, yeah.
ECQ. How could we effectively approach that? You would be surprised where, what I've always said, you're always surprised where the nugget comes from. And the nugget could come from someone who was the lowest level, who just got hired, as opposed to, see, leaders sometimes feel that they should have all the answers. You're heading for disaster today with that. And you're going to misfire the vast majority of the time. But if I ask you, you're going to tell me.
And that's the humbling truth, Sir Ron Thomas.
Yeah.
We don't know
everything. And I don't want anyone to ever view me as this expert person.
But you are.
No, I've had a lot of different experiences, and I can translate those experiences into what you ask me or tell me. But my overriding theme and what I do is that I need to go to the audience that's going to be impacted, and I need to have a conversation with them. I can run a focus group. I can run a Q&A. But the answer is going to come from the people that's in that room.
So it's not just about authenticity and sincerity. It's all about listening skills.
Listening skills. That was one of the key points, listening skills. You know what? To be honest with you, the vast majority of leaders don't listen.
Why is that, Sir Ron?
Because they listen for pauses. They've already locked down their thoughts, views, whatever it is.
Okay.
And they don't want to let that go. Because if you come to them right away, if I'm the managing director or whatever it is, you coming to me for a question, I got to tell you I have the answer. But it's okay to say, you know what? I don't have a clue, but let's talk it out. What do you think? Let me put it back to you. What do you think? And we'll start the conversation off with that. And then I'll give you my views. But let's just have a conversation. I don't want it to be one where you ask me, I give you my thoughts. My thoughts and solutions could be New York based. It could be working in a creative company where everyone there was designers. It could be working from a military supplier where everyone there's a former Army officer, which was how I came to Saudi Arabia. So my way of envisioning, of mindset, of giving you a response, it's going to be filtered through all of those. But one of the things I figured out, it's always best, if you give me a question, I'm going to think about it, but I definitely want to know your thoughts before you leave.
Wow. So thank you for sharing that point of view, sir. Now, Sir Ron Thomas, before I call on the next Zoom live session, we have another question from Sir Darwin Rivers. What do you think should be the top 3 post-pandemic programs that companies should implement?
My first thing would be some type of engagement session with the people that are coming back.
Okay.
The other concern with that would be safety. I need to make sure everyone understands the safety protocol and post-pandemic, post-virus, what happens if. And then thirdly, I'm going to engage everyone in that group to say, I need you to come to me with some ideas as to how we can match this out. What can we do to get us back on track? Because we've all been disrupted. I don't have all the answers, but across this room of 25, 50, 100 people, let's have some chats, some discussions, some side conversations as to how we're going to build this up, because we value each one in the room. You're here because you're important to us. Even the ones that left are important to us because of business conditions. But we value you, and that messaging is about you and the value you bring. And we don't want to lose sight on that. And the entire message is wrapped up into how glad we are that you're here.
Wow.
And that's going to open the floodgates. Well, it may not open the floodgates, but that's going to begin the conversation.
Thank you, Sir Ron. Now, we have to call now the Zoom live session presenter, or at least the question will be asked by Christine Senoron for her live question. Where are you, Christine?
Afternoon.
Hi, ma'am.
Hello.
Hey,
Yes, hello, good
Christine, how are
afternoon.
you?
Yes, I'm good. Good afternoon, Sir Thomas. So here's my question. So I'm not from the HR department nor working upfront with the customers or clients. So I'm just very intrigued with these HR roles in times of
Mm.
crisis. So earlier you mentioned about empathy, understanding, and flexible working policies, also with the safety and well-being of the employees. So, however, my boss, I'm sorry, my boss is nowhere near those. So, how do
Mm.
you go about as a manager if this kind of leadership is way out of hand, forcing the employees to work amidst the lockdown and all here in the Philippines just to produce an outcome and results? And work from home model is nowhere an answer. And instead of supporting and coaching us, all we hear is just pinpointing all our faults.
Oh my.
Thank you.
The book by Gallup says it's the managers. That's exactly what they're talking about. Oh gosh, you know
Yes,
what?
sir.
I could feel my blood pressure rising as you were walking through that scenario, because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, is there possible solutions with that? So we talked about the frontal approach may not work, so we surround
Yes.
it.
Mm.
Maybe, maybe not.
Um,
But my question coming back to you, so your workers still have to come to work even with what's going on today?
yeah, we're still going to work.
Wow. You've got a huge problem, because your workers are looking at the news. Your workers are talking with their counterparts across who are working from home. And here's a total lockdown, shutdown, I'm the leader, I'm in charge mentality.
Because our
That's a classic case, but as far as solutioning, I don't really know. Because if that person can't, that person's going home at night, that person is watching the same news, that person is reading the same situations here, people dying with this virus, and you're kind of downplaying it, and you still want people to come because of the KPIs that you've designed, they're lost.
So we'll pray for you, Christine.
Yeah, but I tell you what, Christine, what's gonna be the end result of that? Your employees are steaming. They are looking for a way out. And I know it's a tough time to try and find a job, but the first opportunity that presents itself, they will jump ship, because you've shown as an organization you cared about no one's health. And this is a health issue. You didn't care about that because the KPI was overriding the health issue. A KPI for a business was, so they've already shown you where the importance of the organization of the KPIs and the outcome. It has nothing to do with their importance. There's no, and to be honest with you, there's no solution to that. If that person can't see the totality of how that would be disruptive from a strategic approach to a workforce, that's a lost cause.
That is.
Well, you just mentioned job shifting, so I might as well consider that. When all of this is over.
Look at it this way. So what's the challenge? It's a health issue. Yeah. And then there's employment. So employment can go one way. I'm still employed, or I've been downsized, or whatever it is. But the health issue, you don't need to worry about a job. I saw something online that said that if you're worrying about going out and getting a haircut, getting your nails done, the funeral home is still doing that. And I said, wow, that really brings it to the forefront. The funeral home is still doing hair, they're still doing nails, all these kinds of things. So
the morticians are doing that.
Yeah, so if someone chooses between a KPI and people, and KPI wins the argument, there's no hope there.
Yeah. And we'll pray for you, Christine.
Well, thank you for your prayers.
And for your co-employees.
Yes,
and for your lead, and for that leader, because that leader needs help.
That leader needs help.
I'm
sure he has a BFF or she has a BFF.
Sometimes leaders like that, the BFF is the front. They hate them too.
Okay. So they're frenemies. You thought they're friends, but they're actually enemies.
There we go.
Anyway.
Thank you, Ma'am Christine.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sir Ron, for the last question. But before that, somebody has shared her thoughts. Ma'am Fe Villanueva, we need to change mindsets of those who believe that safety first is only for manufacturing plants. exclusively for manufacturing plants. So we just have to to change the belief.
Mm-hmm. Well, so this is the case from the airline industry. The airline industry is considering safety on a flight. If you've flown lately, you're sitting right next to someone, unless you're sitting in business class. Yeah. And some of the models they're already looking. Aircraft manufacturers have already been experimenting with models. See how quick people get onto things, and they say, in future state, if this is what our client wants, how do we do that? And one model was person sits here, facing this way, the middle person sits here, but there's a shield that goes around it. So when I saw that, I said, there's no privacy with that. Well, maybe they can darken the shield, but they will probably bring passengers in, taking a look at it, because this should not be just for a sector of industry that's manufacturing. So if I was having that conversation, I would look for articles that centered around returning to work. How will safe distancing work in the new era? You could probably Google that and come up with some cases that are working. And the conversation would be around that. The conversation can never be, we've got to change this. It's not manufacturing only. I can show you examples. I can tell you a story. I can say, this is how the airline industry is looking at it. Here's what they're thinking about. So if the airline industry is looking at it and as impactful as that is on business, that means that every type office environment is looking at how can we social distance. I read in another article that from an architectural perspective, that the companies that are doing workplace designs are rethinking the entire concept of the office with social distancing. So why not start thinking about it now, putting together some prototypes, but you open up the discussion internally. These are the kinds of examples you can use. It's not just manufacturing. There's so many other industries that are going to be impacted, as a result. So
thank you, Sir Ron, for that. You know what I like about you, Sir Ron, you're not only well-read, you are well-experienced, and thus you are credible whenever you answer questions thrown at you by us, by our...
That sounds better than saying I'm an expert, so thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Now, sir, there's one anonymous attendee question. What specific, accurate, and efficient performance management system that we could use to identify high potential skills for succession planning?
Okay. So you're talking post-virus. You have to be talking post-virus.
It could be.
Yeah, because that would not, I don't think that would be on the agenda
now.
For now.
Maybe post-virus.
Well, and again, that depends upon your budget.
Oh.
Now, Conferry is the leader, one of the leaders in that. You also may want to check out, if you search General Electric, Session C. And the Session C, which is free, you can find that online. I have a copy of it someplace. Session C is this. Not so much from a succession or doing an assessment, because an assessment is not foolproof. That's not 100% accurate. That just gives you kind of a ballpark. But major search firms use assessments to try and figure out who could possibly or have a higher probability of success. Session C is based on how well, if you're on my team and I'm thinking you're ready for the next step. Now, this is non-assessment, but here's how it works there. I have to prepare a package about you, your successes, your strengths, weaknesses, and I have to present that to a peer group. I can't vote.
Okay.
So that means the people in the room will say, Howard worked with me and my God was just on top of everything. And you could also have someone in the room says, no, came through, the deliverables were not met, always a challenge. It could have been attitude, but you have a group of 10 people who are kind of looking from all around, surrounding it. So that's the GE uses that, and they've always used it. I think that's great because that takes away the cronyism, moving your friends through the loop. That could be a hard sell in organizations.
True.
If you have someone that's an org psychologist, That is their area of expertise. You could possibly engage someone. See, the thing is, this is what I've always done. If I was concerned about that, I would interview org psychologists and say, here's what we're looking to do. What are your thoughts on that? What type of models do you have? Can you walk us through those models? And I maybe would get 4 or 5 presentations. And then I would switch and say, Con Ferry, whoever it is, you come in and walk us through your presentations. I didn't say I was going to buy anything. I'm just in exploratory mood. But I tell you what, after I've interviewed 7 or 8 people, I've got a pretty good general idea of what the market is talking about. And then I can kind of zero into what I may be looking for depending on budget. So tap into people that are in the assessment industry. You're an inquiring customer. I didn't say I was going to buy anything. We're thinking about this. They will always come back and say, how soon are you looking to make that decision? Possibly within a year. And they come in and you have your questions set up and you go through the process. You do 4 or 5 people. You've got a pretty good understanding because there's no clear-cut measure. There's never been an assessment that was designed that I can look at someone and they scored 93 on the score and they're going to be successful. Because a lot of that's going to depend upon the type of business you're in. It depends upon the DNA of your workforce. If that's a younger workforce versus a mid-level workforce, if that's a professional workforce versus a manufacturing workforce. So there's too many dynamics. So what works for this company may not work for here. So that's why if you bring someone in, they're going to do kind of a Q&A to figure out what kind of business are you in, what kind of leader, what is your values and missions and all those kind of things.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sir Ron.
Okay, guys.
Are you still okay for just one more?
I'm still okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Ron. Chona Fantastico. All changes require cost. How can we balance between needing to implement this change and manage cost when everything is at the uncertain stage now due to this pandemic?
Again, never be the expert to say, here's what I think. Cost will always be there. But does the overriding mission of what you're trying to accomplish override the cost? If I succeed in that mission, could the business outcome of that be increased revenue, market share, whatever it is? So I'm going to have to analyze that issue. And so here's another way I look at it. I always do kind of issue analysis. The issue, what's the importance in the organization? Is it going to have a huge impact if I can turn it around? And that may be a business outcome. So that prioritization exercise is based on what's going to be the impact of the outcome. If the outcome is going to be is a tremendous upside if we nail it or even get close to nailing it, I may use that. And then I just build a business case around that. But I talk to issue, alignment, cost, and projection. And if that projection and business case are strong enough, it overrides the cost and cost becomes a non-entity. But you're going to have to prioritize which one is more important. Always look at the issue that you're looking at and kind of walk through kind of a value chain to see whether there's a strong business outcome. And the business outcome will build the business case when you're talking to these numbskull leaders who only concerned with the dollars or the pesos, whatever it is. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Sir Ron. And I think this last question, a lot of people would relate to this. A lot of HR practitioners will relate to this. From an anonymous attendee asking you this question, what's your advice for HR teams who are not regarded as much in an organization? That is not being included in decision-making in the organization.
Okay, go back to that again, because I got caught up.
So what's your advice for the HR teams? These HR teams are not regarded as much or valued as much in the organization. They're not being included in decision-making in the organization.
Okay, don't feel alone. Because there's a lot of HR departments that are in the same boat.
Okay.
But here's the threshold or the graduating point. You begin solving something, You begin solutioning inside of your organization, taking those issues and walking through that value chain and showing the business outcome. They won't hold a meeting unless you're in the room. Wow. The other leaders will say, can you send the HR team in to do this? All it takes is one success, and that's your platform. I'll give you one case. This was a situation in Riyadh for Microsoft, which was one of my clients at that time. The recruiter, we had done a training session, and I asked everyone, what are you going to work on Monday? The same thing I'm asking you. What are you going to take from here to go back and dig a little deeper, look at the issue, build it out? She said, I'm going to look at turnover because it's been bothering me. A lot of people are leaving. A lot of people that I took a lot of time trying to get them to come into the company. And Microsoft's a strong brand, and they get here and they leave. We spend money developing. Yeah. That. She went back and started doing an analysis. So she said, I have recs. I got 100 and some recs that are open. So what I did was every day at the end of the day, I took a half hour and I went and looked up 2 or 3 people to see where they were now. I Googled their name to see what they were doing. And she said, what I found out was that as I was going through this, that I could see I was building a business case, because what was happening was that almost 65 people out of that 100 or so, I'm just using those numbers, had gone to one company, which was a competitor, which Microsoft's business development team did not even know that these people had moved into Riyadh as their Middle East headquarters. Their sourcing strategy was hire Microsoft engineers. The turnover costs for those engineers and the money they invested was into the millions of dollars. She had the business case. On the next month-end meeting, she presented to her boss. Her boss asked her to come into that meeting. She presented that meeting. The managing director of Saudi Arabia was blown away. He was blown away by the findings. He was ticked off with the business development people for not being able to realize that we had a competitor that was moving in, but her profile changed. She was standing there walking these business people through this business case, issue related, and showed them cost, but she showed them from a talent perspective. And that was the business outcome. She contacted me after that. We kind of talked through it and where are you now? What are you doing? This kind of thing. And she said that maybe 6 weeks after that presentation, the managing director wanted her to take on a new role as a business analyst. Wow. And she still sits in human resources, but a business analyst, dual report to the managing director as well as the head of HR. Changed the trajectory of her career. So if you're in those kind of departments, you've got to solve something. But, we're faced with issues all the time. What we talked about was 8 different issues that's going to affect you. So even if that's just a starting point, that begins the conversation. Talking to people who's going to be affected in those areas. Talking to leaders that's going to be affected in those areas. Take the issue. You build the value chain across. You align it to whether it's performance, engagement, turnover, whatever it is. You analyze the cost. You analyze from a talent perspective. You make a business case. You don't need to worry about not doing anything and not being seen. You're not being seen and not being listened to because you haven't brought anything of value. And I'm just using that from a general approach. I don't mean that directly directed at you. But when you see those kind of things happening, your department is not viewed as a strategic department. You're not viewed as a business department that just happens to focus on human resources. Remember what I said. Always try and be seen as a business person. If you look at any survey from senior leaders and their views of human resources, the number one issue they have a problem with is business acumen. We don't even understand what was the total revenue last year. We don't even understand which product line generates the most business, which product line is trending higher, which product line is flatlining, which product line is trending downward. Apple, iPhone, 65% of their revenue is tied up in the iPhone. Last year, it was 45%. They lost 20% of revenue in that category. If I'm an HR person, I need to know that because that's going to affect the talent in the business. So we've got to just become more business oriented. And you know what? I'm going to say this. You have to start reading the business section of the paper.
Wow.
and following your industry. And the websites I showed you there. When you sign onto these websites, build your profile out. Tell them you're interested in talent management. Tell them you're interested in strategic workforce planning or whatever it is. And then the learning comes through. Now, I'm not saying every email comes through is going to add value, because sometimes I look at it in the morning, I said, nope, nothing's here, and I move on. But maybe one day a week, there's something in there, and I said, I've got to read this. Now, you know what? I told you this morning, I got Dubai's plan for how we can open everything up. I like the model of that. And I was telling my HR assistant this morning, I said, we're going to use this. So she's very detailed. She said, well, what about the copyright? I said, I'm not saying I'm going to use it verbatim. I'm saying if I plop in an HR perspective and I do it here, I can build my own model. I'm just using their boxes. And that's how we grow in what we do.
Thank you, Sir Ron. And I think that's the challenge you pose for all of us, for all the HR practitioners. We should be business people who happen to be sitting in human resources.
Yes.
And with that, thank you so much, Sir Ron Thomas. Everybody, big hand for Sir Ron.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a great end of day. It's just 1:00 here, so I got a few more hours. So thank you so much, everyone. It's always a pleasure for me to come to Philippines. And my contact information is there. If you have something that you want to run by me again, you can always send it over. I'm always willing to give. You give, you get back. So that's the way I look at it.
Thank you so much, Sir Ron Thomas, for your generosity, for your wisdom, for your kindness, for your empathy, and for your experience. You have distilled over the past many years, sharing with us as much as you can for the past 2 hours, growing us and making sure that we're not only empowered, we're also strengthened. So thank you so much, Sir Ron Thomas. And thank you, everyone. We're not done yet because we'll be calling on, of course, it's your turn now, Madam President Irish Malonda Samson, to take the center stage. Hello, you're still muted, Madam Irish. You're still
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Madam President.
Okay. Wow, that was great session.
Amazing 2 hours.
A handful of insights, sharing of insights, interaction. Wow. I hope that our HR professionals, participants were able to learn a lot today and were able to apply it in their workplace sooner. And also nowadays, of course. Thank you so much for being with us. And of course, more power to our speaker. Thank you so much to Sir Ron Thomas. And hope to meet you personally here in the Philippines. Yes. Of course, thank you, Sir Howell, for moderating our e-learning session today.
It's a pleasure, Madam President.
I'll be seeing you tomorrow.
Do you have a takeaway? Because I have.
Go on.
Okay. So my takeaway, like what I mentioned, don't be the HR professionals that we are right now. Be a business person. Let us be business people who happen to be sitting in human resources. And that's the best takeaway that I ever had.
Well, it happens to be the same takeaway as I have.
Oh, yeah, then thank you for that.
As a president,
we have the same wavelength.
Yes, as a president and as a HR people manager of Ariva Academy. So thank you.
Thank you, and see you tomorrow.
Okay, then, guys, don't please stay tuned because I have a lot more to tell you. Please allow me to acknowledge our win-win sponsors in making this e-learning session possible. Our official media partner, thank you to Art Plus Magazine. Digital media partners, Focus Media, Globaltronics, City Advertising Venture, Outcome, Elevate Media. For win-win partners, thank you to Brother, Faber-Castell, Gluta-C, Moringa O2, KFC, Mr. Donut, Tokyo, Lotus Biscoff, Boss Shop, CERT Technology Inc., Finma Properties, Perajet, and Lawi Korea, Kilson and Carpo Consulting, Enchanted Kingdom, Disperse, Cosmotech Philippines Inc. And for those of you who want to place your ads here, advertise your company, your logo, your services, and have a brand exposure to thousands of viewers. So please email us at marketing@ariva.com.ph. And don't forget to like our Facebook page. It's Ariva Academy Philippines Inc. Again, it's Ariva Academy Philippines Inc. Please do scan this QR code and it will be directed to our Facebook page. Don't forget to like us. For those of you who want to watch the replay of our e-learning sessions, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's Ariva Academy and Ariva Talks. Ariva Academy and Ariva Talks. For our upcoming online learning sessions, this will be tomorrow. Please do join us. We have invited again another international speaker, Mr. Adrian Tan from Singapore. He will be discussing how to be productive when you work from home. And on Saturday, April 25, we have invited Mr. Chinkitan, the sought-after motivational speaker and wealth coach. He will be discussing manage money in a crisis, strategies to manage your money better. And none other than Mr. Howell Mabalot. He will be discussing selfless leadership, leading your people through turbulent times. This will be on April 28th. Don't forget. And of course, there's a lot more of a series of 4R HR Virtual Summit PH 2020. This will be tomorrow, April 24. Why the COVID-19 crisis is ideal to improve your organizational culture. We have invited Mr. Arthur Karmasi to discuss this, and he is from Bali, Indonesia. And on April 27, how to survive and thrive during turbulent times, we have invited Mr. Scott Friedman from USA. Also, we have Pip Penfold to discuss leverage HR technology to power up innovation. This will be on April 30. Don't forget. Next, we have Dr. Indigo Triplet. We have from Malaysia, yes. She will be discussing from surviving to thriving in the new normal. This will be on April 30, 3 to 4:30 p.m. And we have an e-learning masterclass, online selling from home, how to use FB, IG, and LinkedIn for your business. This will be on May 7, and we have invited Mr. Jonathan Yabut again to discuss this. Another session from Mr. Jonathan Yabut, Masterclass Leading a Work from Home Workforce, how to manage and develop remote teams. This will be on May 14, 4 to 6 p.m. And if you want to customize an e-learning session, we can host your e-learning session exclusive for your company. Please do call me at 0916-695-4418 or email me at irish.arivaacademy@gmail.com. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope to see you on our future e-learning sessions tomorrow. Don't forget to register. Why the COVID-19 crisis is ideal to improve your organizational culture. And again, this is Irish Malonda in Ariva. It's all about being better. Thank you for joining us. Be safe and stay home. Bye-bye.